My name is Frank Dalton. I'm 48 years old, and I've spent most of my life doing the right thing. Working hard, paying my bills, taking care of family. I never asked for much in return. I just wanted to help the people I loved. But sometimes, the people you sacrifice everything for are the same ones who'll stab you in the back. I stood in my late father's living room, staring at my mother's red face. Her voice cut through the air like a knife. "Get out, you Leech," she screamed. "This is my house, not yours." Behind her, my sister Denise sat on the couch with her husband, Kyle. They didn't say a word. They just watched. Kyle had this smirk on his face that made my stomach turn. It was the kind of smile that said he'd been waiting for this moment. I'd paid Mom's property tax bill that morning. $2,000. The receipt was still in my pocket, crumpled from where I'd shoved it in there after leaving the county office. "Mom, what are you talking about?" I said, keeping my voice calm even though my heart was pounding. "I've been helping you with everything since Dad died." "Helping?" She laughed, but it wasn't funny. It was mean. "Cold. You've been living here for free, eating my food, using my electricity. You think I don't notice?" Denise stood up, smoothing her skirt. "Frank, maybe it's time you found your own place. You're a grown man. It's not healthy to live with your mother at your age." My jaw tightened. I looked at my mother, searching her face for any sign of the woman who used to tuck me in at night. "Is that really what you think?" She grabbed a garbage bag from the kitchen and started throwing my clothes into it. Shirts I'd worn to fix her plumbing. Jeans I'd had on when I painted her bedroom. "I want you gone by tonight. Before we get to the twist, comment where you are watching from. What would you have done in my place? Click that subscribe and like button." I walked out without another word. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely grip my keys. 5 years earlier, everything changed in an instant. Dad had a heart attack while mowing the lawn on a Saturday afternoon. He died before the ambulance even arrived. I got the call at work and drove 90 miles per hour to get home. Mom was lost without him. They'd been married for 38 years. She couldn't handle the bills, the house repairs, or even basic paperwork. Everything had always been Dad's job. My brother Thomas lived 3 states away in Colorado and rarely called. When he did, it was always brief and full of excuses. Denise was too busy with her job and her kids to help out more than once a month. So I moved back home. I gave up my apartment, my independence, my quiet life. I told myself it was temporary, just until Mom got back on her feet, just until she could manage things on her own again. I took over the mortgage payments, fixed the leaking roof that Dad had been putting off, paid the utilities every month without fail, even covered her medical expenses when insurance didn't come through. The copays, the medications, the physical therapy after her knee surgery, I handled all of it. Denise would visit on weekends, acting like the perfect daughter. She'd bring store-bought cookies and complain about her own problems for hours. Mom would light up around her like she was some kind of angel. They'd sit at the kitchen table drinking coffee while I was out in the yard trimming hedges or cleaning gutters. I was just the background guy, the one who kept everything running smoothly while everyone else got the credit. Kyle lost his job that first year. Some layoff at the manufacturing plant where he worked. I loaned him $5,000 to keep his family afloat. He promised to pay me back within 6 months, swore on his kids' lives. I never saw a penny of it. Every time I brought it up, he had a new excuse ready. 2 days after Mom kicked me out, I ran into my cousin Jerry at the gas station on Route 9. He was filling up his truck when he spotted me. He looked uncomfortable when he saw me, like he wanted to pretend he hadn't noticed. "Hey, Frank," he said, avoiding eye contact and staring at the gas pump numbers instead. "Jerry." He shifted his weight from foot to foot, nervous. "Look, man, I'm sorry about what happened. I didn't think they'd actually kick you out. I thought Denise was just talking." I froze, my hand still on the gas nozzle. "What do you mean?" He realized he'd said too much. His face went pale. "The family meeting. Last month. I thought you knew about it." My chest tightened. Blood rushed to my ears. "What family meeting?" Jerry's face went even paler. "Denise called everyone together. Aunts, uncles, cousins. She said you were living off your mom and that someone needed to talk to you about paying rent or moving out. Most of us didn't agree with her, but your mom seemed convinced." She nodded along with everything Denise said. I felt sick. My stomach twisted into knots. I wasn't invited to this meeting. "No. Denise said you'd just get defensive and make a scene. She said it would be better to approach you as a united family." He paused, looking genuinely sorry. "Frank, For what it's worth, I told them you were the only one actually helping her. I said you were paying for everything and they were being ungrateful. But nobody wanted to hear it. I thanked him and drove away, my mind racing. My hands gripped the steering wheel so hard my knuckles turned white and my fingers started cramping. They'd held a meeting about me, behind my back, discussed my life like I was some kind of problem that needed solving, and decided I was the villain in this story. I couldn't sleep that night. I lay in the motel bed staring at the ceiling, watching the shadows from passing cars dance across the water-stained tiles. Something Jerry said kept bothering me, gnawing at the back of my mind. I remembered signing papers years ago when Mom needed to refinance the house after Dad's death. The bank required more income verification, so she'd added my name to help with the loan approval. I remembered sitting at the kitchen table with her, signing my name carefully while she thanked me over and over. The next morning, I drove to the county clerk's office as soon as they opened at 8. I requested a copy of the property record, filling out the form with shaking hands. The clerk, a middle-aged woman with reading glasses hanging from a chain, handed me the document 20 minutes later. I scanned through it immediately, right there at the counter, looking for my name among the property owners. It wasn't there. My name had been on that deed. I knew it had. I remembered seeing it in black and white. I looked closer, squinting at the fine print. There was a signature on the transfer form, dated about 6 months ago. It was supposed to be mine, authorizing the removal of my name from the property. But the handwriting was wrong. Too neat, too careful, too feminine. Someone had forged my signature to remove me from the property. Someone had committed fraud to steal what was rightfully partially mine. I sat in my truck outside the courthouse for an hour, just staring at that paper. Cars passed by. People walked past on the sidewalk. Life moved on around me while I sat frozen. I didn't cry. I didn't yell. I didn't punch the dashboard like I wanted to. I just stared at that forged signature and felt something inside me break and then harden into steel. Then I said quietly, to no one but myself, "All right, you've made your choice." I didn't call the police. Not yet. I had a different plan forming in my mind. I moved out in the middle of the night on a Tuesday. I packed everything I owned into my old pickup truck, the '98 Ford that had been with me for nearly 2 decades. It took 3 trips back and forth to the motel, loading boxes and bags in the darkness while the neighborhood slept. I left the newer truck, the 2015 Silverado I'd bought for Mom so she could get to her doctor's appointments safely, sitting in the driveway with the keys on the kitchen counter. I also left a note with the insurance information and maintenance records, because despite everything, I didn't want her stranded. I didn't leave any other note. There was nothing left to say that hadn't already been screamed at me. I drove for 2 hours in the pre-dawn darkness until I reached a small town called Riverside. I'd passed through it once years ago on a fishing trip and remembered it being quiet, peaceful, the kind of place where people minded their own business. I parked outside a diner called Rosie's and saw a help wanted sign in the window, faded from the sun. The sun was just coming up, painting the sky orange and pink. I felt hollow inside, empty, like someone had scooped out my insides with a spoon, but not broken. I walked into that diner, the bell above the door chiming cheerfully. A woman behind the counter looked up. I asked about the job. The owner, a woman named Ruth with kind eyes and gray hair pulled back in a bun, hired me on the spot to work the morning shift. "You look like you could use a fresh start," she said. "When can you begin?" "Right now," I told her. It wasn't much, but it was a start. It was mine. Ruth's husband, Tom, owned a warehouse across town. When he heard I had maintenance experience, 20 years working at a processing plant before Dad died, he offered me a second job without hesitation. I took it immediately. I worked the diner from 6 in the morning to noon, then the warehouse from 1 to 9 at night. 7 days a week. No breaks except to eat and sleep. I was exhausted by the end of each day, falling into bed with my muscles aching and my hands raw. But I didn't mind. Work kept me from thinking about what had happened. Work kept the anger from consuming me. The warehouse foreman, a guy named Tony who'd worked there for 15 years, noticed how hard I worked. He started giving me more responsibility. Small things at first, checking inventory, signing off on deliveries. After 3 months, he promoted me to operations lead with a significant raise. The pay was better. I could finally afford a small apartment instead of the motel. Nothing fancy, just a 1-bedroom place above a laundromat on 3rd Street. But it was mine. Nobody could take it away from me. For the first time in years, I felt like I was rebuilding something real, something that belonged to me alone. One afternoon in late summer, Tony called me into his office. He looked serious. "Frank, the owner's thinking about selling this place. He's getting old, wants to retire to Florida with his wife. He's offering shares to employees first, before he puts it on the market. You interested?" I didn't have much saved, but I had my pension from my old job, and I had nothing to lose. "Yeah," I said without hesitation. "I'm interested." I withdrew a chunk of my pension, took a small loan from the credit union, and bought a 10% share in the warehouse. It wasn't much compared to the other investors, but it made me a partial owner, a stakeholder, someone with a say in how things ran. The owner, Mr. Callahan, took me under his wing after that. He taught me about inventory management, negotiating contracts, dealing with suppliers and difficult customers. He shared lessons from his 40 years in business. His son, Derek, worked as a real estate broker in the area. He'd stop by the warehouse sometimes to visit his dad, usually on Friday afternoons. He wore expensive suits and drove a BMW. One day, Derek and I got talking while I was checking a shipment. He mentioned he managed several properties in the next county over. "Mostly residential stuff," he said casually. "Foreclosures, short sales, that kind of thing. The market's tough right now. Lots of people losing their homes." Something clicked in my head. My pulse quickened. "What county?" "Montgomery." "What?" "That was my old county, where Mom's house was, where I'd spent 5 years of my life paying bills." I kept my face neutral, showing nothing. "Just curious. I used to live there." Derek didn't think anything of it. He just shrugged and changed the subject to sports. But I filed that information away carefully. Months passed. The seasons changed from summer to fall to winter. I kept working, kept saving every dollar I could. I started a small home repair business on the side with a guy I met at the warehouse named Curtis. He was good with electrical work and plumbing. We'd take weekend jobs, fixing roofs, painting houses, replacing busted water heaters, and fixing broken furnaces. Word spread fast through the small town. People trusted us because we did quality work at fair prices and always showed up when we said we would. One Saturday morning in February, Derek called me out of the blue. "Hey Frank, you got a minute?" "Sure. What's up?" "I'm going through some properties in Montgomery County this week. There's a house that's about to go into foreclosure. Owner's behind on taxes by 3 years now. It's a shame, really. Nice property. Figured I'd give you a heads up in case you knew anyone looking for a deal." My heart started pounding so hard I thought he might hear it through the phone. I tried to keep my voice steady and casual. "What's the address?" He rattled it off. It was my mother's house. The house I'd lived in. The house I'd paid for. I kept my voice steady, professional. "When's it going to auction?" "Next quarter. April probably. If they don't pay the back taxes by then, county takes it and sells it at auction. Standard procedure." I thanked him and hung up. I sat there in my apartment in complete silence, staring at the wall where paint was peeling slightly. They hadn't paid the taxes. Not once since I left. Not a single payment in over a year and a half. I didn't warn them. I didn't call. I didn't send a letter or an email. I didn't tell anyone in the family what was coming. I just kept working, kept building my business with Curtis, kept putting money aside in a separate savings account specifically for the auction. Curtis noticed I was distracted, quieter than usual. "You good, man?" he asked one day while we were replacing someone's kitchen sink. "Yeah," I said, tightening a pipe fitting. "Just thinking about the future." He didn't push it. That's what I liked about Curtis. He knew when to leave things alone and respect a man's privacy. One evening while we were closing up the work truck, he mentioned a property coming up for sale in Montgomery County. "Bank-owned," he said. "Probably going cheap at auction. Might be worth looking at as an investment property." I knew which one he meant before he even said the address. My hands stilled on the toolbox. "You thinking about buying it?" he asked, watching my face. I nodded slowly, choosing my words carefully. "Yeah, I think I am." Curtis grinned, clapping me on the shoulder. "Then let's make sure you win that bid, brother." The auction was held on a cold Tuesday morning in April at the county courthouse. I wore a plain jacket, jeans, and a baseball cap pulled low. I blended into the crowd of about 30 people, mostly investors and house flippers looking for deals. My mother wasn't there. Neither was Denise or Kyle. I'd half expected to see them, but they were nowhere in sight. They probably thought someone would bail them out at the last minute. Maybe a church group. Maybe a relative with deep pockets. Maybe some miracle. But nobody came. Nobody saved them. The auctioneer started the bidding low, $10,000 for a house worth at least $80,000 in good condition. A few people raised their paddles immediately. I waited, watching the competition carefully. When the price hit $15,000, most people dropped out. Too much work needed, probably. I raised my paddle calmly. Someone countered, a man in a suit who looked like a professional flipper. I went higher, raising my paddle again. Back and forth we went. 18,000, 20,000, 22,000. By the time it hit $20,000, I was the only one left. The house flipper shook his head and lowered his paddle. Sold, the auctioneer shouted, banging his gavel. To bidder number 47. I just bought my mother's house for $22,000, a fraction of the $70,000 I'd paid in bills, repairs, and taxes over 5 years. I walked out of that courthouse feeling something I hadn't felt in a long time. Control, power, justice. I didn't move in right away. The property was still technically in transition, and by law they had 30 days to vacate after receiving official notice. I spent that month quietly repairing the place, working at night so no one would see me. New paint on the exterior. Fixed the sagging porch Dad had always meant to get to. Replaced the broken fence posts I'd been meaning to fix before I was kicked out. I worked at night, under the glow of work lights, like a ghost haunting my own past. It felt strange being back there, walking through rooms I used to live in, seeing the wall I'd patched after a pipe burst in the bathroom, the kitchen tiles I'd replaced when the old ones cracked, the ceiling fan I'd installed in the living room during a heat wave. This house had my sweat in it, my money, my time, my life, and they'd thrown me out like garbage, like I was nothing. 3 weeks into the 30-day period, my phone rang. It was Denise. I almost didn't answer. Frank. Her voice was shaky, crying. Real or fake, I couldn't tell anymore. Mom got an eviction notice in the mail today. She's freaking out. She's having panic attacks. Do you know anything about this? I paused, taking a deep breath. Yeah, I do. Silence on the other end. Long, heavy silence. What do you mean? I bought the house, Denise. At auction. She sucked in a breath so sharp I heard it through the phone. You what? At auction. 3 weeks ago. I'm the new owner. She started yelling, screaming, calling me names I won't repeat. I held the phone away from my ear until she was done, her voice becoming a distant, angry buzz. My mother called the next day. She didn't cry. She screamed. Her voice was hoarse, raw with rage. You're evicting your own mother? Her voice cracked. What kind of son are you? What kind of monster? I stayed calm, sitting at my kitchen table with a cup of coffee going cold in front of me. I'm not evicting you, Mom. I'm enforcing the law you used on me. This is my house. Your father and I bought this house. No, I said quietly but firmly. It's mine. I have the deed. I paid for it. Fair and square. At a legal auction. She was quiet for a moment, breathing hard. Then she hissed. I'm going to tell everyone what you did. Everyone. The whole town. The church. Your cousins. Everyone will know what a heartless son you are. Go ahead, I said calmly. Tell them. She hung up without another word. Within days, the whole neighborhood knew. The story spread like wildfire through the small town. Frank Dalton kicked his own mother out of her home. Can you believe it? His own mother who raised him. But a few neighbors, the ones who'd seen me mowing her lawn at midnight after working a double shift, shoveling her driveway in winter when it was -10 degrees, fixing her car for free in the garage, they knew the truth. And they started talking too. Quietly at first, then louder. The rumors didn't stop. At the diner, customers would give me strange looks. Some avoided sitting in my section. Some stopped coming altogether. But Ruth stood by me. I know you, Frank, she said one morning while we were wiping down tables. You're not cruel. You're not heartless. There's more to this story, and I don't need to know what it is to know that. One afternoon, Kyle showed up at the warehouse. He looked terrible, unshaven, eyes bloodshot, clothes wrinkled like he'd slept in them. Desperate. Frank, please, he said, his voice breaking. Help us out. Just this once. We need money for the back taxes. We can fix this if we just have the money. I stared at him. Really looked at him. You mean the taxes I paid for 5 years straight? He flinched like I'd slapped him. That's not fair, man. That's not fair. You're right, I said, my voice cold and level. It's not fair. I spent 5 years saving people who would have watched me drown without throwing me a rope. I loaned you $5,000 you never paid back. I fixed your car. I helped you move. And when I needed a place to stay, You sat on that couch and smirked while they kicked me out. He tried to argue, opening his mouth to protest, but I walked away before he could get another word out. That night, Denise sent me a voice message at 11 p.m. Her voice was panicked, shrill. Frank, Mom fell in the bathroom. She broke her leg. She's in the hospital. St. Mary's. Room 304. Please. I closed my eyes and took a deep breath. And despite everything, I went. I found Mom in a hospital bed on the 3rd floor, her leg in a cast elevated on pillows. She looked older than I remembered. Smaller. Fragile. The hospital gown made her look tiny. Denise was there, sitting in the corner chair, along with Kyle, standing by the window. They both looked at me like I was the villain in a horror movie who'd just walked into the room. Mom, I said quietly, approaching the bed slowly. She turned her head away, facing the window, refusing to look at me. Come to gloat. No. I came to see if you're okay. That's all. She didn't answer. The machines beeped steadily. The TV mounted on the wall played some game show with the volume low. I stayed for 10 minutes, standing awkwardly by the bed. Then I walked to the nurse's station and told them I'd cover her medical bills. All of them. Whatever insurance didn't cover. Denise's mouth fell open. She looked stunned. You're paying for it. Yes. Why? Because she's still my mother, I said simply. As I walked toward the elevator, my mother's voice stopped me. Weak but sharp. Will you sign the house back? So can I die in peace. So I can have one thing that's mine. I turned and looked at her. Really looked at her. At the woman who'd raised me, who'd made me breakfast before school, who'd cheered at my baseball games. No, I said quietly. She spat in my direction. The saliva landed on the floor near my shoe. I left without looking back. A week later, the local news ran a small segment on elderly eviction cases. It was during the evening broadcast, right after the weather. My mother's pastor, Father Murphy from St. Catherine's, had contacted them, painting her as a victim. A poor old woman being kicked out by her cruel son. They interviewed her on camera. She cried. She told them I was heartless, that I'd abandoned her. But someone, maybe Jerry, maybe one of the neighbors who knew the truth, sent the station copies of my bank statements. 5 years of statements showing every payment I'd made. Property taxes, utilities, repairs, medical bills. All of it is documented in black and white. The story changed overnight. Completely flipped. Suddenly, I wasn't the villain. I was the son who'd been taken advantage of. The good guy who'd been betrayed. People started reaching out, offering support, apologizing for believing the rumors without knowing the facts. Strangers sent me messages on social media telling me I did the right thing. Denise tried to control the damage on Facebook, posting her side of the story. But it was too late. Even her own friends were questioning her version of events, asking difficult questions in the comments. Then the real bombshell dropped. Denise lost her job at the accounting firm where she'd worked for 12 years. Her employer discovered she'd falsified documents, including a signature on a property transfer. My signature. The forged one that removed my name from the deed. She tried to blame me, claiming I'd given her verbal permission and that she was just helping Mom. But the county clerk had records, timestamps showing when the document was filed, proof that I was at work 2 hours away when it was supposedly signed in person. The evidence was irrefutable. A lawyer from the district attorney's office contacted me, asking if I wanted to press charges for fraud and forgery. I thought about it for days, lay awake at night thinking about it. Curtis told me I should press charges. Ruth said it was my decision alone. In the end, I didn't file charges. But I didn't help her either. I didn't speak in her defense. I didn't write a letter to her employer. I didn't bail her out. She was on her own now, just like she'd left me. Poetic justice. Months passed. Fall turned to winter, turned to spring. My business grew steadily. Curtis and I hired 2 more guys. Good workers, reliable. We were booked solid for 3 months straight, sometimes turning down jobs because we couldn't fit them in. I bought a better truck, upgraded my tools, rented a small office space to run the business from. One Sunday morning in May, my mother showed up at my apartment unannounced. She looked broken, defeated. She'd aged 10 years in the past few months. Can we talk? She asked, her voice small. Not angry, just tired. I let her in. I poured her coffee, black, the way she liked it. She sat on my couch and started crying. Real tears this time, not the manipulative kind. Her whole body shook. I let Denise manipulate me, she said between sobs. I let her poison my mind against you. I thought if I sided with her, I wouldn't lose you both. I thought you'd always be there no matter what. I took you for granted. I didn't say anything. Just listen while she cried. I'm sorry, Frank. I'm so sorry. I was wrong. About everything. I reached into my pocket and pulled out a set of keys. I placed them on the coffee table between us. She looked at them, confused, tears still running down her wrinkled face. There's a guest house on the property, I said calmly. Small. 1 bedroom, 1 bathroom. Kitchen area. You can live there. Rent-free. For as long as you need. Her eyes widened in disbelief. You'd let me? After everything. On one condition. The main house stays mine. Legally. Officially. No arguments. No trying to take it back. No adding your name to the deed. It's mine. She nodded quickly, eagerly. Yes. Okay. I agree. Thank you, Frank. Thank you so much. 2 days later, I helped her move in. It took 1 trip in my truck. She didn't have much left. Most of her furniture had been sold to pay bills after I left. Denise found out through the family grapevine and showed up unannounced 2 days later, demanding to move in too. She pounded on my door at 7 in the morning. I looked at her through the screen door. She looked terrible, like she hadn't slept in days. No. You're letting Mom stay but not me? Your own sister. That's right. That's not fair. I need help too. I lost my job because of you. You lost your job because you committed fraud? I said calmly. You forged my signature. You stole from me. You manipulated Mom. You held secret family meetings behind my back. You sat on that couch and smirked while she kicked me out. And you never once apologized. I'm apologizing now. It's too late, I said. Some things can't be fixed. I closed the door. She stood there pounding on it for 5 more minutes before finally leaving. For the first time in my entire life, my mother stood up for me. When Denise tried to force her way into the guest house later that week, Mom told her to leave. I watched from the window of the main house. Frank's been more of a family to me than you ever were, Mom said, her voice stronger than I'd heard in years. He sacrificed everything for me, and I threw it in his face. I'm not making that mistake again. Denise left in tears, screeching out of the driveway in her car. I never saw her again after that day. She moved to another state according to Jerry, started over somewhere else. My business kept growing. We expanded into commercial repairs, small office buildings, retail spaces, restaurants. I hired more people, paid them well, gave them benefits. The old family pastor, Father Murphy, called one day in late summer. He sounded nervous. Frank, he said, I owe you an apology. I spoke without knowing the full truth. I hurt you. Yeah, I said. You did. The church roof needs repairs. It's leaking in 3 places. Would you be willing to do the work? I can't pay much, but I'll do it, I said. But only if you tell the truth publicly. From the pulpit. The whole story. He agreed immediately. That Sunday, Father Murphy stood in front of the whole congregation at St. Catherine's and told the real story. Every detail. Every payment I'd made. Every sacrifice. Every betrayal. The whole town finally knew the truth. No more rumors. No more whispers. Just facts. My mother sat in the back pew, crying quietly. Several people stopped to hug her afterward, but also to shake my hand. For the first time in 2 years, I felt completely vindicated. A year later, I visited the main house on the property. It was fully renovated now, new kitchen, updated bathrooms, fresh paint throughout. I had good tenants, a young couple with a baby, who respected the property and paid rent on time every single month. I stood in the driveway, looking at the place that had caused so much pain, so much anger, so much loss, but I didn't feel angry anymore. I felt at peace. The house was just a house now, not a battlefield, not a reminder of betrayal, just a good investment property. My mother called one evening in September while I was closing up the office. Frank, I've been thinking. I'd like to move back into the main house. As a family, we could live there together. I was quiet for a long time, watching the sun set through the office window. No, Mom. She started to argue, her voice rising. But I'm your mother. I cut her off gently but firmly. I know, and I love you. But that part of our relationship is over. You have the guest house. That's what I can offer. That's all I can offer. She was quiet. Then she said softly, I understand. I visited her one last time at the guest house a few weeks later. We sat on the small porch, drinking coffee and watching the leaves fall from the big oak tree in the yard. I'm not angry anymore, I said honestly, meaning every word. But I'm done saving people who never saved me. I'm done sacrificing myself for people who wouldn't do the same. I'm done being the background guy who gets no credit and all the blame. She nodded, tears in her eyes, but not crying. Just accepting. You deserve better. I should have given you better. Yeah, I said. You should have. I stood up, gave her a hug, a real one, not awkward, and walked to my truck. She watched me from the porch, one hand raised in a small wave. The sun was rising as I drove away from the property. Orange and pink and gold spreading across the sky. A new day. I didn't look back. I didn't need to. I'd reclaimed my life, my dignity, my peace, my power. I'd rebuilt myself from nothing. Started over in a new town with nothing but an old truck and determination. Built a successful business. Bought property. Created something real and lasting. And that was worth more than anything they'd ever taken from me. I was free. Don't just watch. Join the family. Click subscribe and turn on notifications for the next story. Drop a comment if you've ever felt betrayed by family.